Trick-or-treating, carving pumpkins, and watching scary movies. They're all popular festivities enjoyed by millions of people every October. But where do these spooky traditions come from? And why do they continue to attract so many young followers? We sat down with several Purdue professors to get the real scoop behind America's hair-raising holiday, Halloween.
There's a lot of paranormal themes in the media. If you go through your cable offerings, it's all over the place. So haunted houses and evil spirits and that sort of thing. And I started studying the extent to which exposure to this kind of entertainment might affect what people believe about the paranormal. One of the things I discovered is a fairly large percentage of university students actually express belief in ghosts and haunted houses and so forth. And I think that when they see these things depicted in a realistic way, as if they could possibly happen in the real world, we kind of internalize that and we start thinking that, well, yeah, maybe these things are real and maybe they do happen.
Belief in the supernatural dates back many thousands of years. The ancient Celtic festival Samhain marked the end of the harvest, a time of year when the sister stars of the Pleiades constellation sat directly overhead on October 31st.
Most people would identify Halloween with Samhain. We're talking about an authentic Celtic tradition. About 2,000 years ago, it's basically associated with November 1st. And the eve before, they are putting away the harvest. They are locking up the livestock or slaughtering those that they know will not make it over the winter. And on that eve, it's a minimal time in which they believed evil spirits could roam the earth, and they were usually bent on destruction. And that's why, when you get to the idea of guising in the 19th century in particular, where people are dressing up as evil spirits, it's because they want to protect themselves from the evil spirits that are walking. So the evil spirits will think, oh, you're one of us, okay. Yeah, we're not going to mess with you. Just like the carving of the pumpkin comes from the carving of the turnip, since they don't have pumpkins in the old world, and they carve evil faces on it, and it's to ward off the evil spirits, just like dressing up in the costume is to say, I'm one of you, don't mess with me.
As the centuries passed, the Romans incorporated the Samhain tradition into the festival of Pomona, goddess of fruits, and by the 9th century, Christianity had morphed the Celtic traditions into All Souls' Day on November 2nd as a day to honor the dead. It wasn't long before dressing up and going door to door for treats became a popular custom in Ireland and Scotland.
They want apples or nuts or coins or whatever, and if you don't give the treat, then you get a little trick. And then again, the vandalism comes in, right? In this country, we, of course, as usual, took it a step further with commercialization. Department stores that have costumes people can buy. So that tells us right then and there, this is becoming a phenomena, much bigger after World War II, and it becomes trick-or-treating.
Today, millions of Americans participate in trick-or-treating on Halloween. Not surprisingly, this is also a time when costume parties, haunted amusement rides, and horror films are in highest demand.
Even though a lot of the trappings and the beliefs and rituals from that were there centuries ago have fallen away, but there's still something about the idea of Dracula or the idea of vampires, which just is extremely compelling to the human mind. So you find it in different cultures, but you also find it persisting in our culture.
When you start seeing costumes in the 20th century of like witches, that has nothing to do with the origins of Halloween. Because witchcraft is a much more medieval and then much more 17th century phenomena, so it's far more modern than Halloween. Ghosts kind of make sense. Why do we think of ghosts as wearing a sheet? Because it goes back to the shroud. When they buried the dead, they wrapped them in a shroud, which would be like a white sheet of some sort. And so that makes some sense.
One really plausible explanation, or at least a factor in the explanation of why we still have these traditions, and it's because they push those buttons, and there's something about having those buttons pushed which makes them attention-grabbing and memorable, and again, when they're in the right context, kind of fun.
We're wired for novelty, and so we're drawn to see things that we can't see every day. People often experience the frightening film or the haunted house or whatever it is. People remember these experiences as a great experience. They're not remembering the fear as a great experience, but they're remembering what they felt after the fear and that profound sense of relief that can actually transfer into euphoria and a real sense of enjoyment. And particularly if you're with other people, again, if you're with your friends, that just heightens the enjoyment factor. If
you're watching a movie, even if it's super immersive and there's, Texas Chainsaw Massacre about to kill someone or a zombie who's going to turn you into a zombie, it's sort of inevitably pushing the psychological reflex we have. But you also know that it's not going to jump out of the screen and get you. So on the one hand, you get all the thrill of that sort of emotional experience and that voltage and that frisson, but you get it for free. You're not actually at risk.
Another factor involved here is we are drawn to conquer something that we think about as threatening, and being able to brag about that. I made it through. This is particularly a dynamic for males in our culture. So for teenage boys, this may be a real attraction to scary stuff. In my research, I would say about 1/3 of the people that I have surveyed on this topic, about 1/3 of them say they are drawn to it and they enjoy it. Not everybody does enjoy that stuff. And so parents of young children need to really be forewarned about the potential for scary media to cause their children to experience anxiety and what I would call emotional upset. That's one of the things I've studied over the years.
There's people who are real connoisseurs of Lovecraftian dread, and they really like putting themselves in situations and going seeing movies which just freak them out. Because with Halloween, there's disgusting stuff in there, but there's also just brutally scary stuff in there. And fear is not quite the same as disgust. Fear is you're afraid of a charging bear, but you're disgusted by zombies degenerating skin or something. And we have different psychological weapons to sort of help prevent that.
There's no denying the novelty aspect of Halloween, or its long and winding history from around the world. So on October 31st, if the midnight sky is clear, look up to the Pleiades and share in a moment that our species has commemorated for more than 2,000 years.
The popularity of horror movies, as well as trick-or-treating, continues to rise. According to a National Retail Federation survey, Americans are expected to spend more than $9 billion on Halloween festivities in 2017, a record high. In addition to strong costume sales for kids and adults, some consumers are even dressing up their pets. We'll be right back.